So as Kathy mentioned, each of you will have up to 2 minutes to answer each of the questions that were provided ahead of time. And if you're shorter, then you'll have more time left at the end for the last question. So Vinnie, we're going to walk through all of these with you to start. And so the first question is, Alameda County contracts out roughly 75% of its health and social services to nonprofit organizations throughout the county. As a new county supervisor, how would you go about building relationships with the nonprofits that provide services in District 1?
Well, I think, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me here today. And thank you all for all you do. I'll just share a quick story before I get to that question. We have community development block grants that come to the city of Fremont. And in a prior year, our Human Relations Commission suggested we give 70,000 more. And I said, of course, I mean, you guys are the do-gooders. And it was largely to go to SAVE and to abode services. And I said, yes, we should give them an extra 70K looking at our budget. Someone wanted to do a compromise and give only 35, and I ended up voting against that because I said, no, these are the people that are doing the great work in our community, and we need to reward them the best we can. So I am very happy and thankful for all that you do in the nonprofit world. As far as, how to go about building relationships, it's quite simple. It's just talking to people and understanding what their organization does and what their needs are. I know I've talked with many of the nonprofits in Fremont. I know the people who run them, Abode Services, Meals on Wheels, and many others. So it's just simply making those relationships and understanding what is really needed. I think right now, the biggest things is going to be health services related to COVID. So I would really want to talk to all the people, the staff from the Alameda County Health Department, and understand, just what are the real needs that we have right now to get us through this horrible COVID crisis. And again, looking at what nonprofits can help with that. But again, it's a tough question to fit into 2 minutes because you've got so many things dealing with the arts, dealing with, trying to deal with food insecurity, dealing with health services, but basically meeting with those people and understanding what their needs are. And I definitely, I have a track record of doing that, and I would be more than happy to keep on meeting and learning more and more about all of what these various nonprofits do and seeing what we can to make them as successful as possible.
All right, thank you very much, Vinnie. The next question for you is, each supervisor receives $150,000 per year in Measure A funds, a half-cent sales tax for health and public health services, primarily for the uninsured, underinsured, and those in poverty. What health and public health services would be your priority for those Measure A funds?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I don't mind saying I am an advocate for Medicare for all. I just think we do live in a country that is wealthy enough that we can provide adequate health care for everyone. And I think it's a shame that we simply don't do it. If you look at almost every other industrialized nation does provide some form of universal health care. But anyway, of course, I can't solve that on my own. The best thing I can do is to see that we provide the best health services that we can. And again, with COVID, this is going to be critical. Because as I'm sure you know, already the demand for health services in Alameda County was huge. We have a number of people who do not have some form of private medical care. And of course, with COVID, with people losing their jobs, this is just going to increase more and more. And we're already seeing that those services are really stretched. I think we have to, I'm kind of getting into another question, but the bottom line is we have to look at those that are the most needy right now with healthcare services and provide them. Again, I think COVID is, of course, a huge issue. We have to make sure that the people that have that are treated appropriately. We also need to make sure that the people who are providing those services are treated with dignity and respect. And again, I'm happy to have the backing of the nurses because I've been out there at their rallies fighting for them to get better PPE and better working conditions so that we can take care of those people who need those health services. But again, COVID is obviously a priority, but of course, every other disease every other ailment that we have didn't go away because of those healthcare services. I mean, because of COVID. And anyway, all those, we definitely need to provide as much, the best health services that we can. And again, priority obviously is typical medical triage. Those that are the sickest, those that really need it have to come first. So.
All right, thank you very much. And you're right, this next question is very much related to that. Community health centers are nonprofit providers of health care to more than 270,000 Alameda County residents. Health centers provide primary care, mental health, and dental care to anyone, regardless of the ability to pay or insurance status. The county contracts with community health centers to provide care to uninsured county residents. If elected, would you continue to support healthcare services for all residents, including those without access to coverage?
Yes, absolutely. Again, I just think it's morally wrong that we have people in this country who are, suffering and don't have adequate medical health care. I think as a country, we can afford to provide that. So definitely, I think to provide a little further elaboration on the kind of the budget priorities, I think we might, for now, I definitely don't want to see us losing any of the employees of Alameda County. I think we need to, protect those employees and again, treat them with respect and keep them employed and at their current salaries because we need all their services. I think we may need to reallocate some services, especially again, to get us over this COVID hump and especially to provide health services to those that need it. But most definitely, I don't think I need 2 minutes to say, yes, I would continue to support healthcare services for all residents and definitely those that do not have access to coverage.
All right, thank you.
Prioritize that. So.
And the next question is, there's a wonderful network of nonprofits that provide this crucial health and social services in Fremont and the Tri-Valley. However, many times our residents must go to Hayward, San Leandro, and Oakland to receive services. What will be your strategy to bring additional health and social services to District 1 communities so residents can receive services where they live?
Yeah. So I think first of all, you need to look at, where the need is for those services. For example, if we're talking about homeless services, Fremont has seen quite a rise in our homeless population over the past few years. Right now, we're hovering around 500 or 600 people that are homeless within the city of Fremont. And I am quite proud of the fact that we did provide a homeless navigation center in Fremont, right in our backyard, right behind our city hall, because I think the need is definitely there in Fremont. I know the city of Dublin, I think in their homeless count, they had something like 8 people. So obviously we would not want to dedicate a lot of resources towards that. And and of course you obviously have to look at where the greatest need is. I have heard, I don't have the precise numbers, but I have heard in Livermore, they are seeing quite a rise in the homeless population. So that would be a good reason to say we need to provide more services to the city of Livermore, and maybe a homeless navigation center. If that's something that the council wants, and if they feel there's the need for that, then I believe the county should help with that. And indeed, the county did help in the city of Fremont with our homeless navigation center. And again, I think it's got to be needs based. Obviously, I can't promise you just open up services everywhere. We have to be very strategic because of course you have to think about the budget, and I'm not going to promise that we just are going to open everything everywhere. But I think it's really it's got to be needs based, and we have to look at where those services are needed. And again, I think you are seeing in Fremont and Livermore a lot more increased poverty. And it's incredible to think about poverty in both Fremont and Livermore and Dublin for that matter. But indeed, we have quite I forget the exact number. I think it's something like 5% in Fremont actually qualify for poverty level. So while a lot of the services in Alameda County have traditionally gone to Oakland and Berkeley, we definitely need to fight for those people in the Tri-Valley and in Fremont who need those services.
All right, thank you, Vinnie. And then as District 1 Supervisor, you would represent most of Fremont. Dublin, Livermore, and unincorporated East County. Fremont and the Tri-Valley are two distinct geographical areas with different needs. How would you balance your priorities between these areas?
Yeah, this is a question we get a lot, and it kind of I'm kind of annoyed by it because there's kind of this territorial aspect that, you know, oh, if you live in Fremont, you can't represent Tri-Valley, or if you live in Tri-Valley, you can't represent Fremont. And I think that's just wrong. And I'll say it is wrong both ways. Obviously, the priorities, how would I balance them? Well, it's about 50% of the population's in Fremont and 50% is in the Tri-Valley. So I would balance those accordingly. I think actually, if I should win, I would actually want to learn more about what's going on in the Tri-Valley, because obviously living in Fremont, I know much more about our local nonprofits here. Again, I know the people there. I don't know the people out in the Tri-Valley and those nonprofits as well. So I think at the beginning, my priorities would definitely shift towards learning more about what's going on in the Tri-Valley. But I think, you know, I think, and I'll say this about my opponent too, I think both of us are capable of saying, I represent all of District 1. And I will spend time in the Tri-Valley. I will spend time on Fremont. And when it comes to budget allocation, I will be fair. And I will look at where are the needs and I will allocate appropriately. I don't think there's anything about either of us that says we're, you know, going to shortchange the other side. So again, I think that, you know, how would you balance the priorities? Obviously, you would look at both and you know, see, and you know, again, 50% of the population, so you'd balance them either way. But specifically, again, when it comes to the services that nonprofits provide, again, it's got to be needs-based, and you've got to look at where the greatest need is. If health services, you know, are more needed in Fremont, then we should focus, you know, obviously there needs to be somewhat more balance of the budget there. If, you know, some other services are needed more in Livermore, then you'd balance there. But again, it's got to be needs-based. And I do think that, again, both of us are quite capable of representing the whole district.
All right, next question is, nonprofits have been able to access several important Alameda County revenue sources under Supervisor Scott Haggerty's tenure, including Vision 2026, Boomerang, Measure A, and Measure A1 bond funds. As our communities continue to struggle in the pandemic and economic downturn, are there new sources that can be accessed to help local nonprofits? If not, what specific plans do you have to support local nonprofits? And how will you determine which nonprofit organizations receive funding?
Mm-hmm. Obviously, the budget is going to be tough. And I wish I could promise that, yes, there's all sorts of sources of funding that the arts and everything else will get. But of course, things are going to be tough. I think allocations from the federal government are going to be tough, from the state government. So again, I'm not going to try to present a rosy picture. I know in Fremont, I will just say our Human Services Director, Suzanne Shenfield, she has been an expert at getting whatever grant money she can and allocating those. Again, I think as far as supporting local nonprofits and which ones, I think we have to look at needs-based and getting through this pandemic and making sure that everybody is healthy and housed. And unfortunately, I know I will just say I'm a huge fan of the arts. I will say I don't know if you're familiar with the economist Richard Florida, who actually did an analysis about economic development. And he determined that cities with large populations of gays and artists, that was one of the biggest determinants as far as economic development in a certain area. So I take the arts and culture very seriously, and I believe very strongly that we need to educate youth. And it's sad that in our school systems and in government budgeting, arts has been considered something that's, well, we can, not critical. And unfortunately, when it does come down to issues of health and housing people, that is true. And again, I don't want to. It's not that I don't like the arts, but obviously we have to focus on those people who are really suffering, because you really are seeing it. We have food insecurity here in Alameda County. We have a very rising homeless population. And unfortunately, I think with the COVID, with the economy, things are going to get worse. Many people that are, the eviction moratorium is still in place, but that goes away next year. And there's going to be many people with that are still unemployed with very large backlogs of rent. So things are going to be tough. And I think we have to prioritize those that are really suffering. And that's in general, I think that's always been my politics, is we help those who need it most. And I've done that. For example, I'll just say I did a referral on the minimum wage to help those who are, struggling. Obviously, if you're making minimum wage in the Bay Area, you're struggling. I also did a referral on rent control to try to help those people, because again, these are the people who are definitely suffering.
All right. And then the next question is, the number of homeless individuals and families has dramatically increased over the last few years, and in particular in the last 7 months due to the coronavirus pandemic. What is your specific plan to reduce homelessness in District 1?
Yeah, again, a lot of this is, we've seen rising income inequality as, and I would argue it's more and more corporate. Our government's advocating for the corporations and not for the lowest people in society. And we've seen a very rapid rise in income inequality over the last few years and even back to the last few decades. So I can't say I'm going to solve the very larger societal problem of income inequality. And I would say that's one of the biggest drivers of homelessness. A lot of people will argue, oh, they're mentally ill people, or they're drug addicted people, when in fact the study of homelessness that we did in Fremont showed that most of the people listed economic conditions as their main driver of their being homelessness. I really applaud services like Abode Services or the Homeless Navigation Center that we've done, which is being run by the Bay Area Community Services. And they really look at the individual, and they really look at what is the cause of this individual's homelessness, and what can we do for this specific person to get them out of homelessness. Do we need better job training? Do we need to, focus on getting them to write a resume and actually get out there and get a job? Do they need mental health services? Do they need drug addiction counseling? And I think, BACS and Abode Services has done a really good job. And again, I think that's what we have to do is more services like that, again, to what budget limitations we can deal with. Again, there are going to be budget limitations, but if I get elected supervisor, I'm going to be in there arguing that we really need to do what we can to help the homeless people in Alameda County, and not just with handouts, but real measures to get them housed again. So, and proven measures like BACS, which is running our Homeless Navigation Center, they have an 80% success rate in getting people rehoused. So those are the kinds of solutions I would look towards.
All right. The next question, we've talked about this a lot. The county will be facing budget challenges due to the pandemic. What are your funding priorities?
Yeah, I think I've pretty much, stated them. I think that, I'm someone who, you can call me a bleeding heart liberal if you want, but I believe that, we have to help those that are homeless. We have to help those people are struggling. I know probably all of us, enjoy a home, and I could just ask you for a second to imagine what it would be like tonight if you didn't know where you were going to sleep and you had to find a comfortable spot outside. These are people that are truly struggling, or people with health issues that they can't afford it. They need some kind of medicine or some kind of medical treatment and they can't afford it. Those are the people we have to help, or the people who are, recently or, potentially looking at evictions. That's always been my priority, is helping those who need it most. So.
All right. A spotlight is shining on the need for all organizations to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. How can the county, and specifically you, help assist nonprofit organizations reach their own DEI goals?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll start out, and I don't mind saying I am a fan of Proposition 16. I think, if you look at our country, systemic racism is obviously something that has existed basically since our inception. And if you look at simple things like the unemployment rate, if a good rule of thumb, if you want to find the unemployment rate for African Americans, just take the national rate and double it. And it's been like that since the 70s. I could cite all sorts of other metrics that show that not just race-based, but gender-based income is just not up to par. What is it? Women make 70 cents on the dollar for what men make. I think Proposition 16 is something that can look at that and helpfully help people or help organizations make the hiring decisions that will help get around that. I think at the county level, we really need to, whether Prop 16 passes or not, we really need to look at those things and what are we doing to make sure that we have a more diverse workforce. In hiring, I know I can promise that if I get elected, for my staff, it will be a very diverse, racially diverse and gender diverse staff. And I will argue for hiring decisions throughout the county that definitely promote that, because again, it's just been going on way too long. We've seen it, and I'm hoping with the George Floyd protests that we actually are at the county level are able to make very significant changes, not just to policing, but to hiring, to the way we're treating disadvantaged communities, and do a lot more to really truly help advance more diversity and equity in our society. So.
All right. So you have up to 4 minutes for this last and final question. And that is, what other information would you like to share with this vibrant nonprofit community in District 1?
Okay, I'm trying to look real quickly at some of the questions. Real quickly, someone asked about the current efforts to repeal the ACA. I'm dead set against that. And I would definitely, again, I've said before, I'm a fan of Medicare for all. I think we need to do more to push for medical, the ACA is good. It doesn't go far enough. Anyway, if I just in a closing statement, I would just cut to the chase and I say, I think the problem we have with our political system in general is that corporate interests, corporate for-profit interests, are allowed to fund candidates at the federal all the way down to the local level. And basically we have a government that works to serve their interests. And I think when you look at the amount of funding that is provided to all sorts of nonprofits, it's a pittance compared to, for example, what we spend on the military industrial complex, or the subsidies that we give to oil companies. And I know there's been a lot of discussion in Fremont looking at our budget and how much we spend on police and fire and how much we spend on social services. Obviously, police and fire are critical, but so are the services that are provided by nonprofits. Now, I don't want to get into a discussion of, whether government, for example, with affordable housing, is it like a Bode or another nonprofit developer, or should we have it just built in, or should the for services like Meals on Wheels, should the government do it, or should it be allocated to a nonprofit? I think that's missing the whole question, is that we simply need to provide more resources societally for those nonprofits. And it's just really a shame again that you look at this country and we have food insecurity right here in the Tri-Valley, right here in Fremont. We have people struggling. I just think that's wrong. And I think our priorities as a government are messed up. And I would just finally look at the issue of affordable housing. And again, I know people who know me know I talk a lot about development and developers, and they're coming in and building more and more market rate housing. And the result of all this over the years has been a huge affordable housing problem. And I would argue that's, you want to talk about homelessness, you want to talk about, all sorts of host of problems of people being food insecure. A lot of it comes from the fact that we have a huge affordable housing problems. We have people who are working here and living here and really struggling to try to get by. And I think, and I emphasize those issues because as a city council member, that's what I have been most able to work on, is providing more affordable housing and not letting the developers just get the way and do more and more market rate housing. I've never voted against a single affordable housing project in the city of Fremont. I've always argued that we need more and more affordable housing. And we have the odds are really stacked against us, because I'll just finish with this. We can charge about a 15% in lieu fee on new market rate development. The Nexus study will show you that we need something like 20 or 25% In other words, when you build 100 homes, you generate the need for about 20 or 25 affordable homes. And yet, if you look at the new RHNA numbers, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation numbers that have come out, they say we need to provide somewhere about 50 to 60% affordable housing. And yet, as the city of Fremont, the best we can do on private property is to say you have to provide 15%. And the developers can even argue against that. So we're getting more and more market rate housing and more of an affordable housing problem. And this, I think, is the real crux. And again, I emphasize this because this is something as a city council member and as a supervisor that we can really address. And for affordable housing, I'll just finish with the two things I think we can do. One, we have to look at the private land, the public lands that we have. Because again, this is an area where we control how much affordable housing can be put on those lands. And secondly, I think we really need to argue our case at the state level. Because they do listen to county and local executives or elected officials. We have to, if more legislation is coming out of California, it can't just focus on more housing. It has to focus laser-like on providing more affordable housing. That will help with so many of the people who are struggling. It'll help with our traffic problem. It'll help with global gas reduction. And if you're out my time, I'll just say thank you so much for having me here. And, thank you.
There you go. Thank you very much, Vinnie. So now, David, same questions to you, and we'll start back up at the top. Alameda County contracts out roughly 75% of its health and social services to nonprofit organizations throughout the county. As a new county supervisor, how would you go about building relationships with the nonprofits that provide services in District 1?
Well, Carolyn, thank you, and thank everyone. I'll thank everybody now for being on the call. This is a great time for us to get together and to talk. I think you'll hear a lot of the same desires to help those that are most vulnerable. I think my opponent and I both feel very strongly. You can call me a bleeding liberal too if you want. In this regard, I think we're both very similar in our desires, but maybe a little bit different in our approaches. I promise everyone on this call that I have an open door policy. I will always be able to meet with you, to hear what you have to say. I'll have an open mind to listen to what you have to say, to understand you and your organization very deeply. And I will be open to taking action. I don't want to just, I'm not a talk the talk guy, I'm a walk the walk guy. And many of the people that are on this call know that I don't just listen, but I roll up my sleeves and I get involved and I help physically, personally, on the ground, whether it's delivering meals or food boxes or finding ways to support you with funding, whether it's personally out of my own pocket, which we've done, my wife and I, for the last 20 years, probably we went through the other night, at least $50,000 or $60,000 of our own personal money over the last 20 years to a wide variety of organizations. So for me, it's about not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, building relationships one-to-one personally, but also very deeply by getting on the ground and serving shoulder to shoulder, side by side with each and every one of you.
All right, and the second question, each supervisor receives $150,000 per year in Measure A funds, a half-cent sales tax, for health and public health services, primarily for the uninsured, underinsured, and those in poverty. What health and public health services would be your priority for the Measure A funds?
Yeah, so here again, it's not enough money. That's just a pittance of what we need to be doing. I know the county spends a lot more than that in other areas, but individually as a supervisor, I would look to steer that money towards those that are currently homeless, those that are nearly homeless. We know so many people are one paycheck away. And if they slip into homelessness, we will be paying so much more for them in the future than if we can keep them out of homelessness. And then those that are food insecure, I would look to prioritize families with children. It breaks my heart when I talk to our Alameda County Superintendent of Education, and she tells me we have families that send children to school who are homeless and they don't have what they need to be successful. I've also witnessed people that are homeless, that are living on emergency medical services, where I said, to this gentleman, your leg is swollen. We need to get you to some medical attention. He said, no, it's not enough. It's not swollen enough. I'm not hurt enough. They'll turn me away. I need to wait a few more days till my leg is really, really bad. And then they'll come in an ambulance, take me to the hospital. I'll have 3 days there, and then they'll let me out. And I thought, how horrible of a situation is that? That this gentleman knows his leg has to get even worse before he can go in and get help. We need a moral imperative to resolve that. For me, it's a matter of rank prioritizing and helping those at the bottom of the ladder first.
All right. Our next question was community health centers are nonprofit providers of healthcare to more than 270,000 Alameda County residents. Health centers provide primary care, mental health, and dental care to anyone, regardless of ability to pay or insurance status. The county contracts with community health centers to provide care to uninsured county residents. If elected, would you continue to support healthcare services for all residents, including those without access to coverage?
Absolutely. So in the Dublin, Pleasanton, Livermore area, we have Access. I see Sue Compton on the call here. Access does a great job with this. I will say that it is better for us to contract for services with organizations like Access, like Abode Family Services in Fremont, like others, like we do with CityServe and gave our HEAP funds to CityServe. It is so much better to contract with people who indeed have a moral imperative, who indeed have a heart for the people with needs. It's much better for us to do that, I think, than have it be a government job. So I'm happy that we contract. I'm happy that we continue. I would continue to contract with groups like this and continue to encourage them, continue to find ways for synergies, importing best practices that we see from around the country and making them even stronger, even better, because we need them.
Okay, the next question. There is a wonderful network of nonprofits that provide crucial health and social services in Fremont and the Tri-Valley. However, many times our residents must go to Hayward, San Leandro, and Oakland to receive services. What will be your strategy to bring additional health and social services to District 1 communities so that residents may receive services where they live?
Yeah, I'll say again, the network is amazing. Just great, wonderful people. I call them, many of them anyway, and I've said this publicly, living saints. People that should be sainthooded if we could, if that's a word. Living saints, people helping others. And no matter where you look, you will find people, and it may not be as readily apparent as an encampment in a neighborhood, but I know in Dublin here, we indeed have people back away. We indeed have our own food banks here at the John Knox Presbyterian Center, and we deliver food boxes from various nonprofit and faith-based organizations. And even though our homeless count is low, the need is there. But indeed, it's a matter of rank prioritizing. I know that if we don't have preventative health and don't have preventative monetary assistance for those that are near homeless, we're just going to have more and more people slip. It's going to cost us more and more later. So for me, it's about really shining a light on the true need, really shining a light on the fact that we may not need all of the services or all of the solutions for everywhere. It has to be laser focused, the right solution for the right need. But I'm all about shining a light, creating the transparency, and then filling each need.
All right, the next question. As District 1 Supervisor, you will represent most of Fremont, Dublin, Livermore, and unincorporated East County. Fremont and the Tri-Valley are two very distinct geographic areas with different needs. How would you balance your priorities between these areas?
Yeah, so I'm really honored that I've been able to get to know the people of Livermore, especially through my relationship with the mayor of Livermore, Mayor Marchand, and through a majority of the city council. who support me and getting to know that community. It's right in my backyard, visiting the encampments that exist down by the arroyo. But I've also really, really enjoyed getting to know the people of Fremont and the 5 distinct communities that have come together to form the city of Fremont, and to meet with leaders, current and former, in the city of Fremont, many, many, many of whom are supporting me. They know that I have a strong passion to help, that I will be fair, and I will institute a fair policy. I will build goodwill for all. I will look at the truth of the data, the transparency, and I will make sure that everyone benefits in a fair and equal way. Carolyn, you know that that's the Rotary 4-way test I just snuck in there. That's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to be very fair, transparent, build goodwill, and benefit all through my program. But it's going to be, again, getting down to Fremont. I have an office open in Fremont already, getting to know the people in Fremont. I'm happy to see some of them on this call, Kathy Kimberlin and others that know I'm going to do a great job, as great as I have already proven to do in the past in my elected office in Dublin. I will continue to do in the city of Fremont. Everybody will benefit.
All right, the next question. Nonprofits have been able to access several important Alameda County revenue sources under Supervisor Scott Hagerty's tenure, including Vision 2026, Boomerang, Measure A, and Measure A1 bond funds. As our communities continue to struggle in the pandemic and economic downturn, are there any new sources that can be accessed to help local nonprofits? If not, what specific plans do you have to support local nonprofits, and how will you determine which nonprofit organizations receive funding?
Well, I'm really proud of the service and the track record and the accomplishments that my predecessor, or our predecessor in District 1, Scott Hagerty, has had over the years, 24 years of service in District 1, and he's done a fine job. I'm extremely proud and honored that he would choose me to pass on the torch, so to speak, to continue the legacy of good work that he's created. And I promise to continue largely walking down that same path. Of course, it will be myself doing that. It'll be maybe a little bit different of a person, but the same path that he's blazed. And I'm proud to say I'll probably take his lead on a lot of those areas. But also, it's going to require that we work together. Our neighboring supervisors, Nate Miley, who I've known for 20 years, as he used to represent Dublin even. He is also endorsing and supporting me. We will work very well together where we can to provide and find synergies to support all. We are going to have to be smart and prudent with how we spend our dollars. It's going to require that we work together. I'm proud that our supervisor, Scott Hagerty, endorses me. I'm proud that our supervisor, Nate Miley, endorses me, as well as many of the electeds in the cities of District 1. Working together, we're going to get through this.
Next question. The number of homeless individuals and families has dramatically increased over the last few years, in particular in the last 7 months due to the coronavirus pandemic. What is your specific plan to reduce homelessness in District 1?
Yeah, so I really like a program that has recently come up in the city of Livermore with a partnership with Crosswinds Church in the county, and that is the tiny homes community that they want to build. And I think that we can very quickly stand up transitional housing for people that is maybe not a full-blown house, but rather a community of places where people can have a safe and a warm place to sleep at night with a bed and a roof over their head, and can come out of the encampments and tents and just really, we all know, horrible living conditions, put them in a place where they have a warm place to sleep, like a transitional navigation center, like some of the other areas that we have already built around Alameda County, building and stealing good ideas and incorporating and importing the best of ideas. To me, it means we have to increase production of warm, safe places for people to live. That means increasing production of housing. It means increasing production of affordable transitional housing. And that's the only way I think we're going to get through this.
Okay, the county will be facing budget challenges due to the pandemic. What are your funding priorities?
Yeah, so here again, we are absolutely going to have to reduce, have a reduced budget. That means fewer dollars among the same or more needs. I've had great experience doing this. Unfortunately, it's never fun. I'm very blessed in the city of Dublin that we have had strong economic conditions for the last decade. But when I was on the school board for 10 years, I had to cut budget 4 times. The state of California is not great at funding education. We instituted a very participatory budgeting process where we brought in all stakeholders, looked at all of the things that we spend our money on, ranked prioritized them from the most important down to the things that we could possibly live without. And then we all had a deep discussion about what can we live without? Here's how much we have to cut. Here's how much we're spending on each of these projects. Do we need to reduce funding or just eliminate it altogether? And we had a very frank discussion with the community. We do this at the county level already. I will continue to do this. And again, it's going to be prioritizing people that have the most needs, the most vulnerable, our seniors, our lower economic status, our families in of homelessness and homeless people of mental health needs and substance abuse needs and health conditions prioritized first. Before we cut them, we will cut other things. And it will take a very disciplined approach, something I'm very familiar with doing, and we will have to do it again as a county.
Next question. A spotlight is shining on the need for all organizations to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. How can the county, and you specifically, assist nonprofit organizations reach their own DEI goals?
Yeah, here again, recognition is, I guess, kind of the first step, and we're all we all recognize, at least everyone on this call I know does, maybe not everyone, but we have to bring them to recognize we have social and racial inequality. We have structural racism. We have implicit bias. We have to first recognize that. We have to then also have the data that tells us where are we currently at in our hiring practices. And here in the city of Dublin, I'm proud that 4 years ago, maybe it's going on 5 years now, I was into being mayor 1 or 2 years, and I said, we have to do something about this. So we gave a goal to our city manager. We didn't say you have to fix this overnight, but we said get to this level over time. And that's exactly what she did. And over time, her hiring practices brought in more diversity. And we're very grateful and very better off in the city of Dublin for having done that. So in my social justice action plan, an 18-point plan, you can find it on my website, dealing much comprehensively around racial inequality, lays out a plan where we will have goals, we will have metrics, we will have quarterly updates on them. We will have a goal, we will work towards getting to those goals, not in a hard, fast, mandatory way, but in a goal-oriented, solution-oriented, let's get to the right place, but let's measure ourselves. Coming from the business world, I understand if you can measure it, you can optimize it. So we are going to measure where we are. We're going to have goals and progress reports getting to them. That's what I intend to do. Get the data, frequent progress reports, and goal setting.
All right, your final question, you'll have 4 to 5 minutes for this. What other information would you like to share with the vibrant nonprofit community in District 1?
Well, indeed, thank you all for being here. I know that the nonprofit world incorporates many different aspects, and I will just highlight my own personal. I know that we have humanitarian needs and social service needs, and here I've helped serve with and help support financially and helped donate my time with places like City Serve, Shepherd's Gate, Open Heart Kitchen, the Alameda County Food Bank, and then Seek and Save Meals that we deliver food boxes on Sundays. I know that there's a need for the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated population to bring them back into the workforce, to bring them back into society. And so I've donated my time and my money with Mercy and Grace and the Aruka House, groups that go into prisons and help people as they're coming out to transition and not to fall back into a life that puts them back into prison. In the education world, I understand Dublin Partners in Education is something I was a big part of for the last 20 years. My wife serves on the board. We're at just about every gala and fundraiser that they have. But in addition to Dublin Partners in Education, which serves the entire Dublin community, we've donated time at the Doherty Elementary PFC and the Dublin High PFSO with regard to serving mental health and mental people with mental afflictions. I served on the board of directors for Anka Behavioral Health in Concord, a nonprofit organization that helped people in homelessness and veterans experiencing homelessness and operating of group homes for people in need. Also serve on the board of Hope Hospice, a care group for people at end of life. We've served on the Easter Seals fundraising committee. I understand there's a huge need for international service. That's why I serve on Rotary International. That's why we've also served and donated money to Compassion International, to Extolo, which helps build homes in Haiti, the Nakuru Children's Trust, and Kids Against Hunger. I'm proud that for the last 10 years, we've supported a young child in Kenya, taking him through from saving his life from the dump to putting him through school and all the way through to university. And Charles is a great part of our family, even though he's not with us every day. We have done a lot, and I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk, I roll up my sleeves, and I help get things done in regard to the nonprofit needs that we have. We need to have a moral imperative, which means that we have to, our blood, sweat, and tears have to go into helping those with most needs. Again, I think we all agree it's maybe a question of how we get it done. I'm a guy that gets it done. Thank you very much for having both of us here today. I think it was a great, great session.
All right, thank you very much, both to Vinnie and David. We have an extra couple minutes, so you probably give you.
I saw Susan just put in about Sunflower Hill. So we're going to get one, Susan. We're going to get one in Dublin. I know. Congratulations on what you've done in Livermore and Pleasanton. We're going to get something done in Dublin, but Sunflower Hill helping a place for need living. Yeah.
All right, thank you. What I wanted to say was give you each chance to look at the chat, and if you, I'll give you a couple minutes each to respond to anything that you saw in the chat. Questions from the participants, and just to remind everybody, questions were solicited from all the nonprofits. All of the responses we received by last Thursday were then shared with the candidates, and that's how the questions were drawn up for today. So Vinnie, is there anything specifically that came up that you would like to address in your final 2 minutes? Vinnie, you're on mute.
Okay. I don't see one thing. I will just say, you know, in Fremont, I was quite proud that we declared ourselves a compassionate city. And of course, that was easy. I mean, who's going to vote against that? But I think that we have done a number of things to actually show that we are indeed compassionate. One of the things I'll just say is I brought a referral to have Fremont declared a sanctuary city, because I think that, you know, we talk about all these people who are suffering. Clearly, those that are undocumented are definitely amongst those that are suffering. They're, you know, largely the ones making that minimum wage or less. And we need to respect them and honor them. And I was very proud that our city council unanimously said that we will be a sanctuary city. There was a little bit, if I saw right, I'm trying to think, there was a lot in the chat. You guys are chatty. But yeah, and I will just say about the tiny homes, I'm definitely, I've been to, you know, a number of meetings where they've talked about that, and I'm in favor of that. I definitely think that we can do more. We can do more there. Again, that's, someone asked about affordable housing and tiny homes. I was like, well, tiny homes are definitely affordable housing. So definitely we can do more there. But I think that, you know, like I say, I am quite proud of the things I've done in Fremont to show that we are indeed a compassionate city. Again, I did a referral on minimum wage because those are the people who are definitely suffering. I did a referral on rent stabilization because we know that a lot of elderly people and other people on fixed incomes are having a very hard time keeping up with the rent increases. And again, I've been a very strong advocate for affordable housing because again, when the affordable housing problem, when people are spending 50 and 60% of their income on rent, that means that they have much less for other things like health services that they need. So anyway, again, I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
All right,
Yeah,
thank
so-
you very much, Vinnie. So David, your final 2 minutes to address anything.
Yeah, so I think Mary Penner mentioned that there have been the hotel programs, and it's just a different variation on a tiny home where you have a very efficient place to live, and you can provide that very efficiently. I look at the sort of the cost to serve, and when you have efficiency like a hotel room that has the utilities that are needed, but it's not a full home, but maybe shared amenities, that could very well be an example of things that we can do going forward. But they have to have the wraparound services that go with that. That's why I'm very proud of Valor Crossings in Dublin, where we provided 65 veterans, formerly homeless, when we scheduled their move in, and they said, how many hours do you need to move in? And they said, it's on my back. I can just walk in. I don't need anything. I don't need 2 hours to unload a truck. And we said, wow, that means you don't have a bed. You don't have a kitchen table. We went out and got those things for them, but it also includes social service director from the federal government VASH program. It also includes internet services and a computer room where they can do job seeking and apply for positions. And so we need to have those services targeted at people where they live, wherever that may be. And so I'm all for those things. I'm all for getting people up out of homelessness and back in to society. Here again, though, I have to absolutely say that maybe there's a disagreement with my opponent here. We have to increase the production of units, and market rate units are what fund quite often the affordable housing. And so we have to work proactively together with the development community here. We need to have people that can work with them that will also bring projects like Valor Crossings in Dublin, which is award-winning, like the Emerald Vista project. Anyway, that's a great question Mary asked, and that's how I would answer it.
Okay, thank you. So if you haven't already done so, I invite both David and Vinnie to put your contact information and or your website in the chat. I thank you all for joining us today. I think, as you know, we have a very, and as stated in one of the questions, we have a very vibrant nonprofit community, and hopefully you found this to be a very informative Zoom gathering today.